I was treated like a servant in my own home. Now my family can't believe I cut them off. I don't remember the first time I realized I wasn't just another child in my family. Maybe it was when I was 6, watching my siblings scatter outside to play while I stayed behind, my tiny hands gripping a broom too big for me, sweeping floors that were never dirty enough to warrant it. Maybe it was at 8, when my mother handed me a dish towel instead of a birthday present and told me to be useful. Or maybe it was the countless nights I stayed up long past bedtime, scrubbing plates while my siblings laughed in the next room, watching TV with full bellies, never once offering to help. It wasn't a sudden realization. It was a slow, creeping understanding. A whisper at first, then a roar. You are not like them. You are here to serve. And serve I did. I made breakfast before school, packed lunches that weren't mine, washed laundry I never wore, scrubbed floors I barely got to walk on because I was always too busy working. And any time I dared question it, any time I so much as hesitated, there was always the same response. Family helps family. You should be grateful we even let you live here. Stop complaining. This is your responsibility. They had a way of making it sound reasonable, like I was just doing my part, like I should have been thankful to be given a role in this family at all. And for a long time, I believed them. Because what other choice did I have? There wasn't a single moment that shattered the illusion. No dramatic betrayal, no sudden revelation. It was a collection of moments stacked on top of one another until I could no longer pretend they weren't there. Like the time my sister threw a tantrum because she didn't want to clean up after dinner, and my mother sighed, "Just do it for her. You're better at it anyway." Or the time my father sat me down not to thank me for everything I did, but to tell me that once I turned 18, I'd need to start contributing financially too. Because of course, why stop at free labor when you could take their money too? Or maybe it was my brother, the golden boy, the one who had never washed a single dish in his life, looking me dead in the eye and saying, "It's not our fault, you're just more responsible than the rest of us." That was the moment something inside me cracked. Because that's when I realized they knew. They knew it wasn't fair. They knew it wasn't right. But they didn't care. Because to them, I wasn't a person. I was a function, a worker, a thing that existed to make their lives easier. And I was never going to be anything else. I didn't tell them I was going. There was no tearful goodbye, no dramatic confrontation. I just packed my things, what little I had that was truly mine, and walked out the door. I was 20 years old. I had no savings, no degree, no backup plan. All I had was the certainty that if I stayed, I would never be anything more than their servant, and I would rather be broken free than comfortable and trapped. I expected a reaction. I expected anger, desperation, panic. But do you know what I got? Silence. Days passed. Then weeks. Not a single call. Not a single message. And that's when I knew. I had never been family. I had been staff. And when staff leaves, you don't chase them. You just find someone else to do the job. It was hard. Hard in ways I can't even begin to describe. Living on my own with no safety net, no support system, no one to fall back on. I had never felt so alone, but at least I was alone on my own terms. I worked brutal hours, scraping by in a tiny apartment that barely had heating in the winter. I ate cheap instant noodles for months, counted pennies at the grocery store, forced myself through exhaustion just to survive. But through the struggle, something happened. I learned what it meant to live for myself. To wake up and know that every single thing I did, every dollar I made, every decision I took, was mine. No one was taking from me anymore. No one was using me. And slowly I climbed. I found better jobs. I moved into a nicer place. I built a life where I wasn't constantly at someone else's mercy. And I thrived. Then, one day, years later, the phone rang. And just like that, they came back. It was my mother. Her voice was light, as if nothing had happened. As if I had simply gone on a vacation and she was just checking in. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, the false warmth making my skin crawl. "We haven't heard from you in a while." I almost laughed. I hadn't heard from them in years, but now, suddenly, I mattered again. "Why are you calling?" I asked, my voice flat. A pause, then, "We need your help." Of course they did. It was almost funny. After I left, things had fallen apart. The house was a mess. No one cooked, no one cleaned, no one managed anything. My siblings, so used to a life of effortless comfort, never learned how to take care of themselves. And my parents? They were struggling. And now, with no more free labor, they had the audacity to expect me to come back, like nothing had changed, like I was still theirs. I let out a slow breath. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You ignored me for years, didn't care if I lived or died, and now that you need me again, I'm suddenly worth something." My mother sighed. "That's not fair." Fair. That word again. "You're right," I said. "It's not fair, but that never mattered when it was me, did it?" A pause. "Please," she said. "We're still family." I almost smiled, because finally, after all these years, I had the power, and they couldn't stand it. The choice I made, I could have forgiven them. I could have gone back, could have given them another chance. But then I remembered all the nights I cried myself to sleep, exhausted and alone. I remembered all the times I had begged for basic kindness and was met with indifference, and I realized I didn't owe them a damn thing. "I hope you figure it out," I said simply. And then I hung up. The calls didn't stop. If anything, my refusal to immediately cave only seemed to fuel their persistence. Like a gambler doubling down on a losing hand, my mother kept calling, kept texting, kept pretending this was just a misunderstanding, as if I had somehow forgotten my place and all they needed to do was remind me. The messages ranged from guilt to anger, sometimes shifting between the two in the same breath. "Mom, we raised you. This is how you repay us? Mom, we took care of you for years and you can't even help us when we need you? Mom, your siblings need you. Stop being selfish." And then when I ignored her, "Mom, fine. If you want to be like this, then don't bother calling when you need something." That one actually made me laugh, as if I had ever called them when I needed something, as if they had ever been the ones helping me. But my mother wasn't the only one reaching out. Soon, my siblings started texting. My older sister, the one who had spent our entire childhood dumping her responsibilities onto me without a second thought, was the first. "Sister, can you just come over and talk to Mom? She's really upset. You're making a huge deal out of nothing." I stared at the message, my grip tightening around my phone. Making a huge deal out of nothing. Funny how my suffering had always been nothing to them. I didn't reply. Then came my brother, the one who had never so much as lifted a dish in his life. "Brother, Mom says you won't answer her calls. You know she's struggling, right?" "Brother, this is your fault. You left and everything fell apart. If you had just stayed, none of this would be happening." Ah, there it was. The truth beneath all their words. It wasn't concern. It wasn't family loyalty. It was blame. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They weren't calling because they regretted how they had treated me. They were suffering without me. And now they wanted me to fix it. At first I ignored them. But curiosity is a funny thing. One day, against my better judgment, I reached out to my aunt, the one person in my family who had always seen through the illusion. She had never openly defended me, never spoken against my parents. But there had been moments, little things, a glance, a sigh, a slight shake of her head whenever she watched them pile their burdens onto me. So I called her, and to my surprise she answered immediately. Well, she said, amusement lacing her voice. "Look who finally decided to check in." I hesitated. "How bad is it?" She let out a low chuckle. "Oh, it's bad. You left and they thought they'd be fine. Thought someone else would just step up and take your place. But, surprise, surprise, no one did." A strange feeling settled in my chest, something between satisfaction and disbelief. I had spent my entire life serving them, and yet not a single one of them had ever learned how to take care of themselves. "What happened?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. My aunt sighed. "Where do I even start? Your sister can't keep the house clean to save her life. The place is a disaster. Your brother is apparently incapable of cooking anything that isn't frozen pizza, so they're either living off takeout or starving. And your mother? She's losing her mind trying to keep it all together." I let the words sink in. For years they had told me that what I did wasn't a big deal, that I was just helping, and I should stop complaining. And yet, now that I was gone, they were falling apart. A bitter smile curled at my lips. "Sounds like they need to figure things out," I said. My aunt hummed. "That's what I told them. But you know how they are. They don't want to change. They just want things back the way they were." Of course they did, because the truth was, they didn't want me back. They wanted their servant back. But that person? That person was gone. 2 weeks passed. The texts slowed. The calls became less frequent. I thought, hoped, that maybe they had finally given up. Then, one evening there was a knock at my door, and when I opened it, I found my mother standing there. She looked different, not fragile, not regretful, just angry. I didn't say anything at first, just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, waiting. She exhaled sharply. "Can we talk?" I didn't move. "What is there to talk about?" She gave me a look. "Don't be like this." I almost laughed. Like this. As if I was the one being unreasonable. As if she wasn't the one who had turned me into a maid in my own home and expected me to come running back the second they realized they couldn't function without me. Still, I stepped aside. Not because I wanted to fix anything, but because I wanted to hear her say it. To hear her finally admit the truth. She sat stiffly on my couch, looking around my apartment with barely concealed disdain, like she couldn't believe I had managed to build something without them. Then finally she spoke. "You made your point," she said, her voice tight. "We get it. You're mad. You wanted space. Fine. But enough is enough. It's time to come home." I blinked. I actually blinked, because the audacity was almost surreal. I let out a slow breath. "You still don't get it, do you?" Her brows furrowed. "What are you talking about?" I leaned forward, my voice calm, steady. "I'm not coming back." Her lips parted slightly, eyes widening in genuine shock, like the thought had never even occurred to her. You can't mean that," she said. I smiled. "I do." A beat of silence. Then, the mask cracked. Her hands clenched into fists, her face twisted, and when she spoke again it wasn't with patience or concern. It was rage. "After everything we did for you," she hissed, "after all the years we took care of you, gave you a home, put food in your mouth, this is how you repay us? By abandoning your family?" There it was. The guilt, the manipulation, the same script I had heard my entire life. But this time, I didn't fall for it. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "You didn't take care of me," I said, my voice almost gentle. "I took care of all of you, and now you're just mad that I finally stopped." Her mouth opened, then closed, because she knew I was right. She just couldn't admit it. I stood, walking to the door and pulling it open. "I think we're done here." Her nostrils flared. "You'll regret this," she spat. "One day, you'll need us, and we won't be there." I smiled. "I've been doing just fine without you." And with that, I shut the door in her face. I stood by the door for a long time after she left. Not because I was doubting my decision, not because guilt was creeping in like an unwanted guest, but because I was waiting. Waiting for the inevitable. Waiting for the pounding on the door to start again. For the next wave of manipulation, anger, guilt, whatever tactic she decided to throw at me next. But it never came. Instead, there was only silence, and I let myself feel relief. Not the temporary kind. Not the fleeting moments I used to get when I stole a few seconds of peace in between chores, in between their demands, their expectations, their control. This was different. This was real. The messages started up again the next day. Not from my mother. From my sister. "Sister, Mom came home crying last night. Are you happy now?" "Sister, you're being ridiculous. You think this makes you strong? You think it makes you independent? All you're doing is proving you don't care about your family." I stared at the messages, unmoved. The family. That word again. That weapon they loved to use when things didn't go their way. Because that's all it was, wasn't it? A tool. A way to keep me in line. To keep me obedient, useful, controlled. I didn't answer. Then my brother messaged. Brother, you're really doing this? Brother, you know you've made things harder for everyone, right? You could have just helped out like before. It wouldn't have killed you. That one made me laugh. Wouldn't have killed me? Maybe not. But it sure as hell had suffocated me. I let them talk, let them waste their energy trying to pull me back in. And when they realized I wasn't biting, they finally did what they should have done from the beginning. They left me alone. I had spent my entire life under their control, under their rules, their expectations, their constant demands. And now that I was free, it was like stepping into a world I had never known. No more waking up in the morning dreading the weight of the day. No more guilt hanging over my head like an invisible chain. No more feeling like I was always one step away from disappointing them, failing them, not being enough. Because the truth was, I was never supposed to be enough. They had designed me to fail. As long as I was struggling, as long as I was stuck in survival mode, I would always be theirs. Always be dependent, available, willing to serve. But now, I was thriving, and they hated it. Months passed. I moved forward. I stopped checking my phone for their messages, stopped wondering when the next wave of guilt would hit. I focused on my own life, my own happiness, my own success. And just when I thought they had finally accepted that I was gone for good, they tried one last time. It was my father who called. He was the only one who hadn't reached out since I left. The only one who had stayed silent, watching from a distance as my mother and siblings flailed, as they tried and failed to drag me back into their dysfunction. I debated not answering, but some part of me, some deeply curious part, wanted to hear what he had to say. So I picked up. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You've made your point," he said, his voice low, measured. I raised an eyebrow. "Have I?" A long sigh. "You're angry," he continued, "and I get it. But this has gone on long enough." I almost laughed. "Has it?" I asked, "because it seems to me like it's only just begun." There was a pause, a beat of silence so thick I could almost hear him grinding his teeth. Then finally, "Come home," he said. A demand, not a request. A command, spoken like an undeniable truth, like it was inevitable, like I would always come crawling back in the end. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. "No." Another pause. Then, his voice quieter now, tinged with something almost like confusion. "You really mean it, don't you?" I smiled. "Yes," I said simply. Because I did. I really, truly did. He exhaled sharply, and I could almost feel the frustration through the phone. "We're family," he said. The final card, the last weapon he had left. But this time, it didn't work, because I finally saw it for what it was. Not a promise, not a bond, a shackle, and I had already broken free. "Goodbye, Dad," I said. Then I hung up, and I never answered their calls again. I thought cutting them off would be painful, that I would grieve, that I would wake up feeling lost, adrift, untethered. But instead, I felt light, like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that I forgot what it felt like to stand without burden. For years, they had made me believe that I was nothing without them, that my value was tied to how much I could give, serve, sacrifice. But now, standing on my own, I finally understood. They needed me. I never needed them. And that was my victory. Not revenge, not making them suffer, just being free. Because in the end, they had wanted me to be their servant. But instead, I became my own person. And I would never, ever let them take that away from me again.